So, hello everyone. My name is Dr. Colin Zhu. I am host of Thrive Bites podcast as well as the TheChefDoc YouTube channel. We are here at the Vegan Women's Summit here in Brooklyn, good old Brooklyn. We're both from New Jersey, so we're just like, oh, it's just across the way. I love it. And we actually, came from very, very close-knit roots. So, please introduce the audience who you are, who or what you represent, and the whole why.
Sure. So, Dr. Sweta Chakraborty, behavioral scientist, and I am all about correcting that gap between perceptions of what people should be worried about versus perceptions of what people actually are worried about, and aligning that to the real data that we have on the planet warming and all of its impacts and ripple effects, like food security issues, like sea level rise. So that's me as a behavioral scientist, and I'm the CEO of North America for the climate tech company and media platform We Don't Have Time.
Nice. From a behavioral health science, perspective, what are the common misconceptions that, you have to typically address? What are people not understanding?
Oh, that's a great question. And that's a great way to actually explain why we are working in climate as opposed to something else. The major misconception is that climate change isn't a big deal. That's what we're struggling with. And while we're in circles that are talking to one another, we have to remember that there's mass populations within the United States and around the world that still really aren't accepting the reality that the global temperature is increasing. And it may sound like a really incremental increase to get to, 1.5 degrees warmer than it was 50 years ago. But actually, that has significant consequences for the planet. So explaining that, really correcting for that misconception, because we know that every 0.1 degree increase means more intense hurricanes, more intense droughts, greater sea level rise, which results in greater storm surges. And we're here in New York, right? Yeah. Hurricane Sandy, when that hit, that was just a Category 2 storm. Now we're talking about Category 3, 4, 5, 6 doesn't even exist, but is potentially going to be created because of the intensity of the hurricanes that we're experiencing. So really educating the public and publics around the world that this is a major risk that they need to be concerned about. And, course correcting for those misperceptions that it's not going to happen immediately. It's a problem for other people far away. We need to act with urgency.
I remember Hurricane Sandy and Irene coming through, our hometown, and basements flooding, and it's a real thing. And for those that don't experience it, it's almost like that huge, disconnect. So, for the company, tell me a little bit more about the company. How do you track people that are having this disconnect, and how do you track, okay, how can we reach this? How can we shift minds, shift paradigms?
That's really what it's about, right? There's a science behind communication. So I like to say we can't just communicate science. We need to apply the science of communicating science. And that's not done. So the social science community that I represent, communication scientists and behavioral scientists, are using communications as a tool to predict and correct behavioral outcomes so that they align to the reality of what we're facing, right? So how do we use communications in a way that is really going to align behavior to better secure humans' individual health and collective health, right? So we need to adapt to a warmer future. We need to secure our communities. And we need to also make sure collectively we mitigate against worse or warming scenarios. We already know we're warming, right? But we can stop it from being worse. And if we act now, we can do that. So communication is really the best tool we have to be able to align those behaviors to those realities. The company, We Don't Have Time, uses technology to be able to better communicate. We actually are reaching audiences around the world through trusted spokespeople. That's really key. That's the number one takeaway. If there's anything to remember from this, it's that the best way to really reach audiences so that they receive the information, they interpret it as you're intending, and that they act on it in a predictable way is if the communicator is trusted by that recipient. So for that reason, we partner with influencers, celebrities. Taylor Swift says, do this, Swifties, people, they're going to respond, they're going to react. So it's really important that we thoughtfully think through trusted collaborators and we reach audiences. And then ultimately, the company, We Don't Have Time, we can actually measure outcomes. And that's important because we need to prove that communication really is working.
So if I give you a magic wand right now, what would you like to see in 3 to 5 years through the initiatives, from your company?
Because the name of the company is We Don't Have Time, the whole point of it is we really need to act now. We need to
Like yesterday.
like yesterday, we need to mobilize in a way that commensurates to the reality of the risk that we're facing. Magic wand would honestly be if everybody, and this is a very behavioral scientist answer, right? If everybody was better calibrated, my magic wand would be for perceptions to match reality. That would be a freaking game changer. Because now we're talking about people actually being scared about the things that they should be scared about, rather than things like getting on a plane. People are more worried about getting on a plane than in a car, right? That's a good example, even though there's 4 times more, way more than that, car deaths in the United States than from plane crashes. And so imagine if we could actually just be better calibrated and our perceptions and the actual realities of what we're facing aligned. Then we would be talking about real political will moving towards taking the proactive steps necessary to protect ourselves.
Awesome. And what brought you to Vegan Women's Summit?
So the Vegan Women Summit is such a incredible, energetic experience of not just women, allies of women too, that are either vegan themselves, proponents of veganism, or peripherally in some way adjacent to this community. So I'm not vegan myself, I'm plant forward. I just learned the word for me is flexitarian, so I'm flexitarian. But I really support this as a behavioral change that we need to be moving towards. So I really appreciate this community of women, and I appreciate the choices they're making in terms of consumption. So I'm really behind this.
From your standpoint, if there's one takeaway that you can impart for our audience, what can they do?
I get asked this all the time, and you can say recycle more. You can say change your dietary choices. You can say make sure that you're consuming energy from renewable sources. I would say pause and recognize what you pay attention to day in and day out. Are you overreacting to things like, terrorist attacks? I mean, not to say it's not scary, but why are we putting all our time and attention into that? Get behind issues and causes that need more time and attention.
The imminent threat.
Yeah. Or, the imminent threat is actually what takes up our cognitive capacities. So we are actually designed to see a snake and run away. But our landscape, the risks that actually affect us might be invisible. Like the outbreak of COVID-19, that was an invisible risk initially. Same thing with climate change. A lot of the risks associated with seem invisible or slow moving or far away. So pause and actually see what is taking up your mental space and think about how to be better calibrated, and then get excited about the climate solutions. Figure out which one you care about the most. Is it in food? Is it fashion, sustainable fashion? Is it transportation? Are you driving electric? Whatever it is, pick that, get behind it, and use the We Don't Have Time platform. It's free, and it's a place to amplify the work you're doing, and it's a place to get behind campaigns around climate that you care about.
Is it a website, an app?
It's a website and an app.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I wish you massive success, and hopefully 10 years from now we're still here.
Thanks a lot, too.
Thank you so much.